Hi, I'm Aarik Danielsen from the Columbia Tribune, and I'm here with Barbie Banks, who is the director of the Citizen Jane Film Festival. Citizen Jane's right around the corner. It's November 1st through 4th. As we're recording this, it's exactly a week from today, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Really right upon us. And so I was curious, first, just before we talk about anything else with the fest, give people a snapshot of where you guys are at. With a week out from the festival, what sorts of things are you kind of, loose ends that you're tying up, details that you're trying to finalize?
Yeah, so with Citizen Jane, we're lucky that we have a class at Stevens College that's connected to it. So my job is kind of bossing around students at this point, but it's a lot of like looking at what films, we already have tickets being sold, and like looking at what films maybe need a last minute push of who could we reach out to that we know this film would be interesting to get people to come to the films, a lot of marketing in that way, and then really just those last minute details. A lot of the events that we have all the big details, but now we're like, it's silly to be like counting cups and forks and that kind of stuff, but that's where we're at. And it's fun with the students because for them, they've attended the festival at least once and now they're the leadership of it, and so it's cool to see them be on this other side and learning and that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you, I know it works different, I've talked to folks at different festivals in Columbia, I know it's a little bit different for everybody. Are you able to actually relax and enjoy the festival as it's happening, or are you still in hyper, let's get stuff done kind of mode?
It's a little of both. I feel like I have such a great team in place that I was surprised at how relaxed I was the first couple times I've done it. I also work for True False in one capacity, and it's with hospitality, and there's a lot of guests that come in, and that whole time I'm like, can this be over? But with Citizen Jane, surprisingly, I think because it is just such a great team connected to it, that I have been able to relax and actually sit down and watch a film with an audience and see that happen, which is pretty great.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, so for folks that maybe haven't been to Citizen Jane before, I think because it's called Citizen Jane, it's easy for me to do this in my head, think about Citizen Jane, the person or the personality. Just give folks a sense of the personality of the festival. What's kind of the vibe that people can expect to get if they come and hang out?
Right. Well, I always assume that people know it's all women directors, but that is something that sets us apart is women directors, and I think the thing that sets us apart from other festivals is our collaboration that happens. So even if you're attending, you are collaborating and changing the statistics for women behind that camera, and sometimes on camera too. And so whether you're volunteering and contributing in that way or buying a pass, it's all about being the partners to change what's happening for women in Hollywood. And so that is something that's unique about us. And so, and even in that space as we're planning it, it's all about collaboration and making sure everyone's voice is heard and recognizing maybe who's not at the table and how do we get them there or make sure they're represented. And so, even if you buy one $8 ticket, you're still contributing to that and making that change. So it's a lot for the filmmakers that come. I think what they find is it's sort of like summer camp is how they described it, or like a retreat where we kind of have a very curated experience for them so that they have time to collaborate with each other and get to know one another, because what prevents women from reaching the top jobs in Hollywood is there's no pipeline. And so what we're trying to do is a person who made a short for the very first time to, Vanessa Roth, who has an Academy Award, letting them talk to one another so that they can create that pipeline. And then we also take them on a hike, and so we do nature-y stuff that kind of feels that gives that summer camp feel to them. So I think they probably have a little bit different of experience than some of our just film goers, but we try to also get that feeling out to them too.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably refreshing and resting for them.
Right. Yeah, and some of them, coming to Missouri, that's their first time in Middle America, and going out to Rockbridge State Park and stuff is cool for them. They're in New York where they don't always get that, and so it's fun to get them out of their comfort zone a little bit.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, like you said, there are really not small, but smaller ways to kind of begin to affect that narrative by just buying tickets and things like that. But I know one of the things that you do with the festival that really begins to explicitly work toward change in the industry is the Citizen Jane Summit, which kicks off the fest every year, and it's just kind of a big conversation between folks in different parts of the industry. And I know this year's summit is kind of grouped around the question who gets to tell what story, right? So tell me just a little bit about what that event is going to look like, and how you think maybe that conversation is really vital to where folks are at right now.
Yeah, so we always, it's a cool exploration of what topic do we want to discuss this year, and this kind of came out of the film Never Going Back, which is showing at the festival, and Augustine Frizzell is coming, and she did this kind of autobiographical buddy comedy that has potty humor in it and was getting a lot of pushback for writing the story in a very male voice.
Okay, yeah.
And she was sort of like, what do you mean? I wrote it myself. I actually live some of those things. And it made us kind of question, like, who has a right to tell these kind of stories? Can a woman... why is our society pushing back against a woman who writes a story about someone who pukes in a bucket? You know what I mean? It's like, we watch that, we have 3 Hangover movies made by men that we have happily embraced as a culture, and so why is it different? And so then as we were watching more of our films and looking at our filmmakers, we realized there's a lot of people who, they tell the story that they know. So, you know, there's Augustine is a good example. She wrote what she knows, but then we have Veronica coming from Poland, and she wrote about an autistic character, and it's like, how did she tell that? How did she come to that? Can she tell that story? And so we just started reaching out to these filmmakers, and they all had really strong opinions on it, and like, yes, I can because of this, or like, I didn't know if I could, so I brought in an additional writer to help me write this, you know, queer black character, and because I'm not that way, you know, not that person, and so, and then Stevens is lucky. Ken Lezebnik, who has taught there forever, and he has written so much in television, but he's almost exclusively written women characters, and so where he's going to be moderating that of like, how do you, what kind of things do you do professionally to make sure you're doing a good job of telling that story? And I think it's relevant right now because we do, you know, there's pushback when an actress is hired to play a character, you know, a white woman's hired to play an Asian character, and but we already hear that, but we want to talk about the very beginning when you're writing that story. Who, like, how do we make sure it's being told correctly? And those stories are so vital, so if there is a missing piece, you know, that's what Veronica talks about, is like in Poland, where she's from, there wasn't anybody writing a story about somebody like her character Wiki. So she's like, I had to write it. That was my responsibility, even though I'm not autistic, but I knew I had to write somebody and get that out to our world. And so I'm excited to hear them talk about it, a little nervous too, because I think some of them have very strong opinions of you should write what who you are and what you know, rather than getting out of that. But that's Ken's job to moderate that.
That seems like a really important conversation, and I think about that all the time in terms of journalism and writing and that sort of thing. So just to see how that's handled in that industry that's really interesting. Yeah,
the journalism school at MU, a lot of those the doc journalism program, a lot of them attend the summit. It's kind of part of a deal with them that we do, and because we want them to be thinking about that.
Absolutely,
and I do think as Citizen Jane is the expert in town of how to make a better balance for gender equality in our industry, and so to collaborate with MU and you know, Columbia College and those kind of places that are educating, we're the people that are here to talk about it and kind of lead those conversations, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great. Well, I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is like the, you know, $1 million question or whatever, I know that you all, your staff works really hard and you care about all these films that are coming in. There's a ton of them, because I know there's like over 70 shorts besides features and all that, but like right at this minute, what are a couple of the films that you're most looking forward to that maybe hit your taste most directly, or are about issues that you're really interested to investigate further?
There's 2 shorts programs and a feature that I just like think are so great this year, and I'm curious to see how the audience responds. So Missouri Made, which are films made by women in Missouri, which is like, you know, keeps narrowing down who's doing it. But there's such a wide variety in there, and I do think we want to see Missouri, especially Columbia, as a place where film can be made. And so to let people see that, like, these are really great films that were made here, and you don't have to go to one of the coasts to get it done. And so the film commissioner for the state of Missouri, Andrea, will be there kind of talking about what is happening at the legislative level also of to get a tax incentive to make people want to film here. And so what we've seen out of the Missouri Made program is people who have gone on to make features in Missouri, knowing, like, that's kind of helped them realize you don't have to go away to make it happen. Even though Georgia, you know, they like famously, everything set in Missouri is filmed in Georgia. They have a nice tax credit, but like we're trying to make people stay. So I'm excited about that. And then Secret Lives of Girls, which are made by girls 18 and under. It's like so powerful this year, and some of the films like we were considering them for non-Secret Lives of Girls programs because they're that top notch at this point. And I think it has to do with access to technology. But that's having an extended Q&A with a professor from University of Colorado at Boulder about what it's like to grow up with a camera. So if most of these young women have had phones their entire lives, they film stuff on their phones, and what is that? How is that different than like what we experienced growing up, where like having a camera was very unique and you were like a rich person if you had that, you know?
Right.
And then I'm really excited about our closing night film. When it comes to documentaries, I love things that are like hard hitting, but this is just like heartwarming and very like sweet. It's called Bathtubs Over Broadway. And it's about Steve Young. He wrote for Letterman for many, many years, and he says in the film, nothing makes me laugh anymore, and these musicals that were written for corporations make me laugh. So corporations like General Electric, some bathroom company, which I can't remember, would write these elaborate musicals and perform them as a way to train their sales staff. And so he collects the albums of it. So there's a little bit of like what it's like to write for a show and have to retire, what it's like to collect records, and then these bizarre musicals, and you'll recognize people in them, like Martin Short. That's where he got his start in there, and then there's lots of Tony winners that's where they started. And so, and because Stevens is a theater school, there is like a special performance happening afterwards of one of the songs. So, so
awesome.
We're like pulling in all the other majors too, not just digital film. So
that's really cool. I did a little bit of research on that film, and just people out there should, before they go see it, like look up some videos related to it on YouTube, because these musicals are just like mind-blowing. Like,
I know,
they're just so weird and funny and quirky, and
like
I think that'll be a
Burger
really interesting
King
movie.
had one, like it's just crazy.
It's like training videos to the max.
Right, exactly,
So that's really
and
interesting.
like if I was gonna have to learn sales, like that's how I would want to learn it, you know. And they happen until like the late '80s, and so there's a lot of content out there, which is pretty cool. And the Steve Young is actually going to be in St. Louis, because the St. Louis Film Festival is going on at the same time ours is, and he's performing there. So come see it at Citizen Jane, and then you can drive to St. Louis and watch him perform.
Get that next weekend. That's great. Awesome. Well, like I said, Citizen Jane is right around the corner, November 1st through 4th. I want to thank Barbie for being here. You can find out everything you need to know about the fest at their website, and also check out our website, columbiatribune.com. We're going to start this weekend, rolling out some stories about some of the films and some of the events that you can expect from the festival. So check that out at columbiatribune.com. Thanks.
Thank you.